All right, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Jim Donda.
Here.
Steve Nelson.
Here.
James Shiloh.
Here.
Eileen Davey. Michael DeVito.
Here.
Eric Jones.
Present.
Kristen Wren. Here. The quorum's present.
Thank you. There are some open chairs here. Are there any changes to the agenda as proposed? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as proposed?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
DeVito.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Wren.
Yes.
Shiloh.
Yes.
Dombeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Audience to visitors. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who would like to address the board on any particular topic?
Yes. Why do you think we're talking? We can't hear you. Are we just, I don't know how we're doing this. Are we going anywhere, or are we just speaking from here?
You could come a little bit closer. Ask you to state your name, your address, and to limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
I can totally do that. Sorry, I've not done this at another, at the middle school. This is so different. Hello, my name is Lee Zucker. I work at Sycamore High School. I just wanted to make sure that our board knew that when it comes to our non-certified staff, we're still extraordinarily shorthanded. As professionals, we're making things work, but I just wanted to remind everyone here that our numbers of paraprofessionals is currently, this model is not sustainable. It is not working. We can be flexible, but it is going to break us. We are still at minimum short 12 paraprofessionals across the district. We are losing so many needed supports for our educationally neediest populations. I also wanted to continue to give recognition to all of the staff that we currently have and just let them know publicly how appreciative we are of how hard they're working, and please keep up the good work. Don't quit on us. I don't know, and I would love if you guys could give that to them too. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Tracy Weaver. I am just yielding my minutes to Lisa Feuerbach.
My name's Kelly Schrader, and I am yielding my minutes to Lisa Feuerbach.
My name's Lisa Shao. I live in Sycamore. I'm also yielding my minutes to Lisa Feuerbach.
Thank you. And I'm Lisa Feuerbach. Thank you. Our forefathers knew and expressed that we have an obligation to stand up and do what is right. That's why part of the reason I'm here this evening, to express to you how poorly District 427 administration recently handled the quarantining of my healthy middle school child due to an asymptomatic positive close contact, and to pose to you some questions regarding remote instruction, keyword, instruction. Just a quick summary regarding what led me here this evening. On Thursday, August 26th at approximately 10:30 a.m., I received a phone call from the middle school dean that, I'll give this to you, that I would need to come pick up my child since he had been identified as a close contact to someone who had tested asymptomatically positive. The dean did not have any details to share, but assured me that the school nurse or school administration would be contacting me with details about the identification process, the remote learning process, and the protocol for my child, my healthy child's return to school. He didn't know how long my healthy child would have to stay out, or whether or not my healthy child could test to return. But all of that info would be forthcoming. A half hour later, Mr. Wilder himself, thank you, called me directly to basically share his regret that we are dealing with this already so early in the school year, and to basically inform me that the school nurse would have the specific information I wanted to know regarding my healthy child. The kind of information we wanted to be informed of was, where and when did this close contact with the asymptomatic positive student take place? Who was responsible for performing the due diligence necessary that identified my healthy child as a close contact? When was the last contact between my healthy child and the asymptomatically positive student? When could our healthy child resume in-person learning? What exactly would remote instruction looked like while our healthy child was being forced to quarantine. As of Friday morning, August 27th, we still had not received any specific information regarding the quarantining situation of our healthy child. So I started calling. First I called Mr. Clavin early Friday morning to find out what the plan was for remote instruction for my healthy child. Mr. Clavin said that there was not a plan. He informed me that he had a plan all ready to go, but he had been told no. I called Mr. Wilder, who was out of the office on his way to Springfield. Eventually that morning, my husband spoke to Mr. Wilder on the phone. Mr. Wilder directed my husband to speak to the school nurse, who would have the particulars on my healthy child's situation. I then called the nurse, who was busy, and so I was told she'd get back to me. I called Mr. Clavin again to request that somehow the classes get live streamed so that my healthy child could at least be privy to the instruction. As it was, my child was only receiving assignments from Canvas, an on-site instruction site. He was not receiving instruction. Mr. Clavin had no answers for me other than the teachers could request to have TVs and cameras put back in their rooms. Meanwhile, I was still trying to get a hold of the nurse. I emailed the teachers asking them, please, have the cameras turned on during your lessons if possible, just during the instructional part. You don't need to answer any questions. He can email you. Crickets. By mid-afternoon on Friday, I still had not heard from the nurse or received any correspondence whatsoever specifically regarding my healthy child's situation, so I called the nurse again. I finally got through to the nurse after I made it clear that it was Mr. Wilder himself who directed us to speak with the nurse. The nurse was definitely feeling overwhelmed. She wasn't sure when my healthy child had his last contact with the asymptomatic positive child. She was counting Thursday as my child's first day of quarantine, but my child had not even seen the asymptomatic positive child since Tuesday, and my healthy child wasn't even sure if it was maybe Monday when he had last seen him. I asked my healthy child if he could return with a quick test to prove he was negative. Because our school was at the time labeled as an outbreak status, she said that he would have to quarantine the full 10 days from the day of last contact. And to return after 10 days, he would need a letter from the DeKalb County Health Department. I didn't even know the health department was involved. How did they get my child's name? She calculated while I was on the phone, oh, looks like Friday, the end of September 3rd, will be his final day of quarantine. But I needed a letter to get back to school. On Monday, then, I contacted the health department because I still heard nothing from the school specifically about my child. I heard nothing from the health department about my child. And the health department said, oh, we told the school on Friday, we can't provide those letters because you're in an outbreak status. There are too many to provide. It was a complete ridiculous mess. My child missed football. My child missed the DC trip. My child missed instruction. Every single bit of information that I received from the school and the health department was initiated by me, by my outreach to them. Honestly, I felt like a cat chasing her tail over and over again, and each person kept directing me to someone else for the information I was looking for, and it was frustrating and made our school district look absolutely ridiculous. So here's what I learned. District 427's website, under the Resources tab and Remote Learning Considerations, it states very clearly that remote learning qualifications are, in accordance with guidance from ISB, remote learning will be offered for students who are ineligible for the COVID vaccination, basically 12 and under, and are quarantined. Meanwhile, on ISB's site, it states, and I got this today, which students are entitled to remote learning under the superintendent's current remote learning declaration. Districts must provide remote instruction, not remote assignments, remote instruction to any student who is under quarantine. So this leads me to my first question. Our district says that remote learning qualifications are in accordance with guidance from ISB. However, the guidance from ISB is that districts must provide remote instruction to any student who is under quarantine. Meanwhile, the district's policy on our website states it will be offered for students who are ineligible for COVID-19 vaccination and are quarantined. ISB doesn't say anything about whether a student is eligible for vaccination or ineligible. So why does our school district make it a point to differentiate on our own website? Why even have the part about ineligible for the COVID-19 vaccination on the policy at all? In other words, why doesn't our school district simply say, remote learning will be offered for students who are quarantined, period. 2, remote instruction. How exactly does our school district define remote instruction? According to ISB, remote instruction is specifically 5 hours of combination of instruction and schoolwork with a strong recommendation that districts strive to provide all their students with at least 2.5 hours of synchronous learning with real-time instruction and interaction between students and their teachers. I assure you that my healthy child did not receive 2.5 hours of synchronous learning with real-time instruction and interaction on his 7 missed school days. He received remote learning. He received remote assignments from the site called Canvas. Read chapter 1, do questions 1 through 10. Furthermore, not only did my healthy child not receive any real-time instruction, but my healthy quarantined child was not even marked absent on those 7 school days. He was marked using a separate code which indicated he was quarantined. Therefore, the state considered him a virtual learner. And so the days that my son was receiving 0 instructional minutes from the school district was still getting paid for his attendance. 3, when in the history of mankind have we ever quarantined the healthy? Obviously, we are in the business here of educating. First of all, every peer-reviewed study that I could find resulted in proving that asymptomatic spread is extremely low, virtually non-existent. If a child or adult is exhibiting any symptoms whatsoever, any, certainly I understand the school requesting the child go home, be tested, to return. You can do things like that. But when a child or adult is perfectly healthy, exhibiting no symptoms, there is no justification for quarantining that adult or child. My final question is something I'm still not clear on, and I'm certainly hoping that it is something I was misled on. It was brought to my attention by several people in authority position during this entire ordeal that if a student in our district was registered as vaccinated or they were ineligible for vaccination, 12 or under, and had to be quarantined for any reason, then those children would receive remote instruction. However, if a student was not registered as vaccinated for COVID, so basically the school had to assume that the child, well, is unvaccinated, but that child was indeed eligible to receive vaccination, then the school had decided that those children would not receive remote instruction. And if this is true, or if it was true, I'm sure you can all see how extremely unfair and divisive such a policy would be. Basically, our district was saying, or is saying, there are students who deserve an education, and there are students who don't. Our district has always been better than this. We've been part of this district forever. You can do better, you should do better, you need to do better. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to address the board this evening? All right, we'll move on to the next item.
I want to be on camera. I'm just going to stand here. My name is, can I start?
Yeah, please state your
Okay.
name and address. And
Well, my name is Jen Crouch, and don't give your addresses or where your kids go to school. Sycamore and Illinois parents, I'm talking
I'd
to
like you
you,
to state your address.
pleading to you, our children's education, security.
You're out of order. We won't hear your comments unless you state your name and address.
I have spoken to this board a number of times and never given it. If you didn't notice, you could go back.
Well, maybe we didn't notice it before, but we notice it now. Either choose to give your name and address or not address the board. It's your decision.
Okay, 560 Devonshire, Sycamore, Illinois, 60178. Can I reset my minutes, please?
How's it relevant?
Totally ridiculous. It doesn't matter.
Well, in case anybody
Order.
on here wants to come find me.
Order. You want to address the board? Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Jen Crouch. Sycamore and Illinois parents, I am talking to you, pleading to you. Our children's education, security, and future is under attack by the Sycamore School District, state of Illinois, and our government. No one will fight for our children's rights except us. Look up SB 654, student playtime, SB 818, and HB 24 regarding sexual education. Opt out. Many bills are being passed, and we don't know what is going on or how our kids are affected because we're so distracted with COVID. What is child abuse in the state of Illinois? Parents, did you know that only 13 states out of 51, including DC, have mask mandates? So our kids are going to save the world from COVID by being forced to wear their masks all day. There's no peeing section in a swimming pool. Their education is disrupted by the max police, and yet they can go to football games. Make it optional, unmask our children. District 427 is breaking the law. by quarantining healthy children while providing no education option. Look it up. The kids forced to quarantine lost out on education, missed their 8th grade trip, and parents lost money. I kept my son home 2 days, not for fear of COVID, but scared that the school would claim another trace and ruin his chances like he did so many other kids. Parents, do not comply. They must provide a court order or return your child to class the next day. Any walkouts? Parents, let's do it. But not the kids. They can't continue to pay the price. How much money has the school district received in COVID dollars? How much did they get per shot in the arm? Somebody want to find out that information? Next, we have the new bus schedule. Kids being picked up 45 minutes later, no details. Their education is in further jeopardy because the vaccine is mandated. I support drivers and teachers for their right to choose. No one should be forced if they don't want to. For anyone who's so scared of COVID that they can't do their job, maybe it's time to quit because we have lives to live and educations to receive. We have great teachers. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. Vaccine clinics at our school. We're looking into the legality. Get your religious or medical exemptions and send a letter to the school stating do not touch, question, trace, swab, test, or vaccinate my child. Call the parent immediately. We must advocate for our children because clearly they won't. We need to contact and protest Weiler, Pritzker, ISBE, Illinois senators, state reps, IDPH, Carmen Ayala. Contact anyone who can help. Thomas DeVore is a lawyer in Illinois who has taken at least 5 school districts to court all in September and winning all of them. Parents, share this video. Let's do this. If masks work, then let family into hospitals to be with their loved ones. If they don't, get them off our children. Someone is lying. Mandates are not laws. COVID is a lot like Common Core math. Things just aren't adding up.
Is there anyone else who wants to address the board this evening?
My name is Colette Montani, 1637 Park Avenue. I'm speaking tonight for a few reasons. Obviously, my main reason is to stand up for my kids as well as the teachers that make up our district who are afraid to speak up. When we started this school year, honestly, I was just so happy my kids would be in school full-time and in person. Don't get me wrong, I'm still thankful for this. My problem is when will the cost of this normal become too much for students, parents, and teachers? When do we as a district stop taking every single recommendation from the ISBE instead of listening to the students, parents, teachers, and our community? When will we get our rights back as parents to do what we feel is right and appropriate for our own children and our home? When will teachers get their rights back to teach without worrying about losing their jobs over a vaccine status? At this point, if you wanted to be vaccinated, you are. If you are 12 and older. We don't worry about job loss or court, at this point, if you are 12 years or older, you have done so and been vaccinated. We don't worry about job loss or quarantine if we do not get the flu shot, just the vaccine. We are told if our kids are vaccinated and have to quarantine, they are not eligible for e-learning. I'm sorry, but this is the worst form of discrimination I have seen in this district. And the board stood by and allowed the ISBE to make their recommendations. One child is denied e-learning for that reason is one child too many. The message you sent the kids and parents is, sorry, your education is not as important as Sue because she is vaccinated. Where did No Child Left Behind go? How does a teacher who is vaccinated have to quarantine for close contacts, get paid, but the teachers that are not vaccinated do not. They have to use their vacation time, PTO time, you name it. So basically you're saying, Mrs. Smith, sorry, Mr. Smith is worth more money because he's vaccinated and you are not. We are not allowed to go to schools anymore and volunteer unless we provide a negative test or we're vaccinated. There are problems with this, and the fact that you guys are not seeing it says that you are part of the problem. The recommendations and mandates are not laws. They're recommendations. Believe it or not, I recommend to my kids every single day something. Guess what? They don't listen. Things that I think are going to protect them, keep them safe, keep them healthy. Go to bed before 1 a.m. You won't be tired tomorrow. You'll learn more. It doesn't mean that they're not doing it because they don't want to be safe. The fact that the flu, and I do realize that the flu is not COVID, but we don't require people to walk around with masks on when it's flu season, because masks are not working. If they worked, then there would be no need to quarantine students for being in close contact, even with the masks on. I do not understand where the logic between the masks, the COVID vaccine, and the quarantining are coming into play. The vaccine works. If the vaccine works, then guess what? If you want to be vaccinated, that is fine. That's your right. Nobody has any determination what you do with your body. However, I can guarantee you that I know of at least 25 people that are fully vaccinated that still got COVID. And guess what? They chose to get the vaccine, and they realize at this point that it's about the bottom dollar. We can have homecoming at the high school, but we cannot have middle school dances. Why is that? Is it because we charge $35 per ticket for homecoming and $4 to get into middle school? At some point, we have to understand that we are doing our students and our community a disservice by following every single recommendation that the ISBE is laying out for us. It is my job to protect my kids. It is my job to determine what is good for them and what is not. If my child is healthy and my child tests negative, please tell me why they would need to be kept home. Why are they not eligible for e-learning if they are quarantined, but a student that is vaccinated is? Does anybody not see that that's discrimination? By all intents and purposes, that's discrimination. I'm raising my kids to think for themselves, stand up for themselves, and make choices that are best for them, not me. And you know what? It is your job to start looking out for the kids and start making sense of how we're going to get back to going to school without masks, without showing vaccine status. And teachers should not be in fear of losing their jobs or losing pay
Thank you.
because of a vaccine
Thank you.
status.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Thank you for your comments, and we'll take those under consideration. We understand and relate to your frustration. We're frustrated too on many fronts, but we're doing our best to try to protect all students and to make this a safe environment for learning for all students. The next item that we have is communications, correspondence, and informational items. Letters and newsletters. Had some, one of them chock full of new legislative mandates that we have to fulfill. FOIA requests. There were two. Both have been responded to. Committee reports.
No planning and zoning meeting this month. SEF had to take root. I was not able to be there, but maybe you could fill in for a couple of comments.
It was a great event. I wasn't there the entire time, but great turnout. Of course, I don't have the ability to kind of compare that to years past, but really a great turnout, great support for SEF. I did talk with Lauren Holtz previous to it, a little bit at the event as well as after the event. Even though the turnout was down a little bit based on her memory, it was a success. So SAF raised a lot of money that will support schools that will be available through grants. I think that grant cycle is open. So great event, a lot of staff that were there, a lot of community members that were there, and the food and the music were great. So good time.
I think they sold 150 tickets and there were 70 or 80 that came with sponsorships. So if everybody came, you're somewhere in the 200 range, give or take.
Yeah. And that was one of the sponsorships. I'll hit on that for just a second. That's one of the things that the foundation is doing a little bit different this year that is proven to be pretty successful.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big part of Take Root, as well as the distinguished alumni on Friday night at the football game. So I think that's been a good move for the foundation, and the feedback from Lauren is that the donors appreciate that opportunity too.
Any other committee reports? Assistant Superintendent for HR, Educational Programs Report, Southeast School Board.
Unfortunately, Mrs. Crawford could not be here tonight. She's not feeling well, but I see a lot of Southeast staff here. So I am going to try and do my best to cover that for her and give Southeast the credit they deserve. So it's good to be back in the buildings for these presentations. I know we missed an entire year of that, and the purpose of tonight is to really celebrate Southeast students, families, and staff and the great job they've done. So it's good to see. I thought maybe only a few would be here. It's good to see many out there. So just to start things off, the focus of this year and really these first couple weeks has been all about building relationships, student to teacher relationships, which is so important, especially at the elementary level, but also student to student. You know, we came back in the spring, but there was some of that missed. So these first few weeks, they've really been focused on that. The use of CHAMPS, which is conversation, help, activity, movement, participation, and success, to set expectations and behavioral expectations. And the staff is really focused on recognizing positive behaviors to set those expectations. So that's been exciting just to see kids back in the building. Just a little bit about the building. So we have 292 students, 3 sections, again at first and third, so we've had kind of some movement or seeing grade levels continue to move up. So we're where we've been, but we welcomed a new staff member who I believe I saw her out there. Ms. Silky, do you want to stand up for us and draw attention to this? And then our math interventionist that's housed here, Brooke Wright, came over from the middle school, so that's exciting if you want to stand up as well. And you'll hear a little more about the specifics of that coming towards the middle of this presentation. We got to welcome the class of 2034 at the beginning of this year. So one thing that I learned through this in getting ready is something pretty exciting and cool that they do. And here's some pictures of it. So at the start of kindergarten, they outline these students so they can see the size. And then they revisit that as students leave after 5th grade. And then when we do our breakfast, the senior breakfast at the end of their career with 427, they come back and do a comparison again. So I don't know where they store all of these posters, but they're somewhere in this building, so that's a pretty cool thing. The next thing, and I know he probably doesn't like attention, but I'm going to call on Mr. Walter here. So he put together a neat little video along with the staff and students. And one thing just before we hit play, you're going to see all means all throughout the year, throughout this presentation. But this video is a great example of that. It's all encompassing of all of our students. So new students to the district, students who have been with us their entire career, young students, our older students, students across different demographics, socioeconomic status, different academic levels, different SEL levels. Everyone was included in this. So it's a pretty neat video. Again, Mr. Walter, thank you for putting this together. So if you can click on that.
We know the link works. I'm not sure how good the sound is, so bear with me.
Good evening and welcome to Southeast Elementary. I'm Mrs. Crawford, principal of the building. It has been such a fabulous month having all of our students back in our building. Their smiles show through their eyes, and you can see how excited they are to be back learning in our building. What I would like to do now is to have them share with you what they're excited about, what makes them happy when they're here in our building. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and you can see for yourself. I hope you enjoy all the comments that they share.
The teachers care about you and they want to help you learn and grow. I like that you make new friends and that you learn a lot of stuff at Southeast School.
I love all the friends I've made here and the wonderful teachers.
I love that people. I'm Riley and I like it when we get to have free recesses. It's fun, all the teachers here are nice, and it's a fun school. I love recess. I like Southeast because they have a lot of books to choose from. I love how there's time for Sunday and play. I love how I get to see my sister every day. And I love how the announcers start in the morning, how they say, make it a great day. Oh no. I like to do PE and library at school. I love Southeast because all my friends are here and I get to make new friends and unite with some of my other friends. I love math and learning numbers. Hi, my name is Brooke Goucher and I like Southeast because all my friends are here and I can make new friends. And I like PE with Mr. Stover and we do a lot of fun activities. Hi, my name is Hannah Tallotson and I love Southeast because I get challenged and I love learning new things. I like Southeast because all of the teachers are really kind and they feel just like family. I love math and I also love win time because we are all winners. I love that teachers care about us and students care about others. It's like we all are just a big family. And it's really fun and all the teachers are nice, especially you. And I love Southeast School because all the activities we do and all the adventures we have here and all the kind people. I love Southeast because all my teachers and friends are here and I think they're amazing and I love giving them hugs. I also like my best friend named Max and I love Red. I like all the teachers and how there are a lot of people working hard to give us a good education. Hi, my name is Evelyn, and I really like this school because I love having all of these friends here, and the teachers are really nice, and we get to learn a lot of fun things. I love what they're doing here at Southeast. All the teachers are all the nice people here. I love when they get the custodian staff is always working so hard to make the school clean. We love Southeast and our kids!
Thanks again, Mr. Walter, for putting that together. Some things that stuck out, and Mrs. Crawford made her notes, just the importance of specials, I think, to students and staff alike, in creating these are well-rounded students. Relationships, and I think even more than just relationships, family, you heard family multiple times. And I think seeing videos like this really grounds us why we're all here, right? Been dealing with difficult situations, all of us, both in school and at home the last couple of years, but this really brings us back, or stepping foot into a school and seeing students really brings us back as to why we're here. So I think it's important, and again, I can't thank you enough, Mr. Walter, for doing that. Next in the presentation, that isn't specific to Southeast, but I think it's important to address as we start these presentations in the schools, is just MTSS and WIN. So I'm pretty sure I saw Dr. Webster again. Another person would not be happy if I call on her or mention her name, but her and Molly Tucker have really put together this MTSS initiative that we've been talking about for a long time, and that we used some funds to bring on a new position to really spearhead that, and Dr. Webster overseeing that has done a fantastic job in a short amount of time. So to tell you a little more about what that is Molly Tucker.
Hi everyone, I'm Molly Tucker. I am our district's MTSS coordinator. And so at the elementary level, this is going to be a little more specific to that level just since we're presenting at Southeast tonight. This year we are implementing a new intervention block across all grade levels, and that is called WIN time. And WIN stands for What I Need. So just a little bit of a WIN overview. During WIN time, our goal is to really collaborate in an effort to ensure students view themselves really as capable, confident learners. And to do this instruction, we have access to high-quality, data-driven instruction based on students' personal learning needs that really just then result in a genuine love of learning. So we have some students there playing a little bit of a math game together during their WIN time. And so our WIN structure really stands for all means all, making sure that we're providing that equitable education for all of our students. So every grade level at the elementary level has a 40-minute intervention block that's built into their day. During this time, this intervention block, we're not teaching any new content, but we're utilizing our essential standards and our data to meet those needs of our students. So a couple of years ago at the elementary level, our team leaders, in conjunction with their grade level teams, went through each of our standards and deemed what standards were essential, and those are represented on our report card with like a little asterisk too. So here's a little bit of our WIN structure. So during WIN time, we're responsive to students. So groups are flexible and fluid, really based off of student needs and their understanding of different essentials. So when I talk about collaboration and just the amazing things that our staff and building leadership have done to really support WIN is outstanding. Our classroom teachers, our math specialists, our reading specialists, special education teachers, related services are all collaborating and working together to benefit all of our students. At the beginning of the year, like we had mentioned earlier, it was really just to build relationships. We wanted our classroom teachers to build relationships with their students, welcoming them all back into their buildings. We wanted our specialists and related services to also build those relationships with the students so that students have an understanding that all of these teachers are here to love and support me and help me grow as a learner. So with WIN time, here are just assessments that we utilize during this. So for our reading one, we have our next step guided reading assessment, and that's a reading record to see students' fluency, how they retell, as well as some comprehension. We also have a words their way spelling inventory for grades 3 through 5. Kindergarten has some assessments that they do at the beginning of the year dealing with letter rec, letter sounds, and some other things within there. We have our math and then some ELA formative assessments as well. This year when it came to math, our math coach created some beginning of the year formative assessments. And really this was a set of tasks to help us better understand our students as mathematicians. Beginning the conversation, students sharing their strategies, just allowing us a little glimpse into their minds of how they view themselves as a mathematician. So we utilize those to help us better understand, as well as math. We have some module assessments with Eureka, as well as our essential math boxes. So just a little overview of assessments. Our goal is to really work on assessments and how we view assessments within our classrooms. Kind of breaking free a little bit of our traditional way of how we view assessment with paper pencil, of learning how a student has their math facts based on a game and gathering data through that way. So formative assessments are an ongoing process within our classrooms, and that's just to help monitor each of our students' learning on a continuous basis. Because WIN time is fluid and flexible so that we can address all of those needs. So it's used to measure a few things, right? We're only focusing on those essentials and utilized to inform teachers and students in their next steps of learning. It just really allows our teachers to better understand their students with the use of those formative assessments. So here's kind of a launching of WIN. This week at the elementary level, they are having data days. And so this is an opportunity for the grade level, the specialists, any related services, special ed, the building principal is on these as well, to learn how to analyze our data to inform our instruction. So during this time in data days, they're looking through all of their math data, their running records, as well as those beginning of the year math assessments. So during these day-to-day meetings, it's a ton of collaboration among classroom teachers, specialists, coaches, related services, and building principals, all focused on student learning and really utilizing those grade level essential standards to then kind of create our skill groups. With our launch, we're officially saying that we're launching WIN next week. We're going to start simple with an understanding that as we roll this out, that it can be messy, but it's something that we're really working on together. And so WIN time really works on the power of PLC. So like I've mentioned, educators are really working collaboratively and take collective responsibility for the success of each of our students. And again, when a fourth grade team meets, it's not my student, but it's our students, because all really means all. And then again, just the collaboration represents the process in which teachers work together in order to impact their classroom practice. And then Mr. Wilder always goes over those PLC questions, and so we really use our PLC time around those 4 questions in order to really guide our instruction for our students with our WIN time. And then just a little bit of our future focus as we really get WIN time up and running at our elementary level is just students really becoming reflective in their own learning and having an understanding of things that they feel successful in and then things that they also feel like they could really grow in. So I even had a 5th grade boy the other day share with me like, WIN, what I need. And he just shared with me that as a mathematician, he feels pretty good. But he said, you know what, during WIN time, what I really need is I need help with my reading. And so already students are becoming kind of reflective in that area of, okay, what do I need some help in? What could I get better in? Which then leads us into that goal setting, of kind of setting that goal for yourself, but then also being reflective on what are you going to do in order to achieve that goal? What steps are you going to take? And then also, like I mentioned, just the use of assessments in our classrooms. Kind of breaking free from our traditional assessments that we've come to learn and know, and thinking about different ways that we can use assessments to better understand our students. And then this is just some feedback that we've gotten since we've kind of been working on WIN since the beginning of this school year. We've come so far since the beginning of the year. I had the opportunity to take on this role right before school started. And right away, the elementary building principals reached out, started talking to me about what they've been planning and thinking about when it came to WIN. Then we all just came together to kind of get this rolling for all of our buildings. We are able to support the learning that needs to take place with all of our reading specialists, related services, as well as our math specialists that we have. And we're able to provide learning opportunities for all of our students that will help them grow. Do we still have questions? Yes, we do. We are getting these answered through discussion and collaboration together. This is something new for all of us, so sometimes that just comes through discussion and problem solving together. The questions help us to grow and understand how WIN time can truly make a difference for each and every student. And then here's a little WIN summary. It's a little slideshow that one of our math specialists had put together to show just some pictures and highlights of WIN time. So when we kicked off WIN time, we really talked about like, what should it look like? What should it sound like? So just that we're starting right away. During WIN time, we're focused on our math and our literacy, looking over work, not giving up. During WIN time, we really talk a lot about having a growth mindset, and we kind of introduced it through this way of some things are challenging for us, and we're going to work together to overcome those challenges. Being creative during this time, being an active listener to your classmates, and then being a good teammate. And then we just talk a little bit of what it should sound like, being mindful of our voice levels, not giving up, listening to one another, having that growth mindset, using that power of yet, encouraging others, and then using our math and literacy language. And then these are just some little WIN Post-its from students. So WIN time is great. I feel comfortable telling them what I can or can't do. WIN time means I can get better in math and reading. And then WIN really helps me learn my skills, and I really appreciate my WIN teachers. And then this is just some students working with some manipulatives or playing some games or working in some smaller groups during WIN time. Again, focusing on those essential standards and skills and how we can make that an engaging way for our students. And then just exploring WIN time, again, just some other pictures of students kind of working together, being collaborative, and just enjoying this opportunity for them.
I think that's the last slide.
Yep. Okay, so WIN time really is guiding us through our PLC. So our PLC process is kind of what guides us as a whole district. And so for the elementary level, our late start Thursday, this is the first year for the elementary building levels that are participating in that. And so our teachers meet from 8:30 to 9:15. And then the building principals created this elementary PLC schedule. So it just lays out a schedule of who's meeting with who and everything like that. Have helped set what questions are answered in our different PLC communities, and then also there's an elementary PLC focus. So our elementary principals also created a focus document that at each of those meetings on Thursdays that are taking place, there's a focus for them to kind of come together, talk, and discuss.
Do you want me to click on, are those?
Yeah,
links?
you can show them, yeah. So this is the structure, and so it kind of goes over the staff member, the weekly team time, the late start, and then just kind of other notes. So it's just laid out in a way of we know who's doing what, when, and where. And then down below, our specialists are in their buildings on those late start Thursdays. And so it goes down a little further too, where it talks about where those specialists are meeting with specific grade levels, or then they are also all part of a district level PLC as well. So this is just kind of our document to show the structure of the when and where people are meeting and discussing. And then the elementary PLC focus, this is just for teachers to kind of use to kind of create their agendas and questioning and documents around these certain topics and areas. Again, just to help support WIN time and help support our students and what we're doing in the learning and teaching realm. And then we have our specialist teachers included in on that, as well as our special education and student services as well. So that just dives in a little bit deeper of the topics and things that they are discussing during that PLC time on late start Thursdays.
And Molly, just to add to that, it breaks it down, so what's appropriate to discuss at the building level, what should be at the district level, and really helps teachers through that process.
Yeah. Okay, and then just a thank you. So this is kind of from Christy. So to the entire Southeast staff for all of their positivity and effort in making this a successful year for all of our kiddos. They definitely rock. Just to our grade level teachers, math specialists, reading specialists, instructional coaches, Chris Webster for endless discussions about data, WIN time, and answering a million questions about how to make this block of time something successful for everyone. And really the elementary principals for their endless discussions, meetings, and support as we move through this year. I'm really thankful for them too, and just their support and collaboration and the work that they kind of did leading up to me getting this position, and just kind of their ideas of really working together. And then shout out to me and Nick for helping.
Snuck that in after we looked at it last.
And then Tony Para for just working endless to keep this building beautiful for all staff and students. And if you have never met Tony Para, he is probably the nicest person you will ever meet. Smile on his face. I even try to practice my Espanol a little bit with him, and will always be willing to help anybody. So he is a big part of Southeast in making this building beautiful for all staff and students.
One story I'd like to share just about Southeast, I think that kind of tells you what the students were talking about with family is, earlier in the year there was a situation going on here, a student with a health concern, the nurse or one of the health office staff had gotten pulled. We had one left. But the nurse called me and said, something's going on in Southeast, ambulance is coming, can you get there? I was probably going about 90 down Locust, checking and faster than I should have, thinking emergency, and it was, but when I walked in, it was as calm as could be. There were teachers that had stepped up to help. Sue Hughes was holding it down to help keep, to help keep the student calm and the family member that was there calm. I think it just tells you a lot about the Southeast staff. I know every school would be like this in our district, but my kids are going to go here, so I'm very excited as well, and I know they'll be in great hands. So I know it's tight quarters here, but if you are a Southeast staff member, if you could maybe stand up where you're at, just so you could be recognized. Thank you.
I do have a question for Molly.
Yeah.
If
Sure.
I can. So Molly, thanks so much. I wanted to share with you, I attended a PTO meeting last night at West, and Ryan Schrader filled the people in that were attending there about WIN.
Yep.
And there was genuine excitement and gratefulness that our schools are doing this. I think parents found so much value and potential in it.
Yep.
Maybe not quite understanding it completely. So thanks so much. I, as an old school parent, am wondering, besides WIN time, okay, so math interventionists,
Yep.
are they, what's their day look like? I guess that's a good way to ask.
Yeah,
ask that question.
perfect. So kind of both our reading and math specialists, they're following their schedule based off of the WIN time block for each grade level. So they're meeting with 6 different grade levels during that 40-minute block of time. And so through collaboration, that's when they're really identifying student needs, and students are put into different groups. So classroom teachers are working with a group, the specialists are working with a group, there may be a student group who's doing like an independent activity waiting to be seen. And so their day kind of follows their WIN time schedule of when they're kind of pushing into support students.
So this is where the old school parent question comes from. Back in the day,
Yep.
you know, reading interventionists used to pull kids out.
Yep.
Is that a thing anymore, or is that not going to happen? I'm just wondering about more individualized.
No, that's a great question. And so that's something that's great about WIN time and really MTSS is it's specific to student needs. So if there is a student or a group of students who need a little bit more of an intensive intervention, then that specialist or special education teacher may be pulling that student out in order to receive those services.
Okay. And what about high-flying students?
Yep, and so that's what we love about this time too, is that we're going to be able to ensure that we are providing them with those enrichment opportunities and those extensions to extend their learning. So when teachers and specialists see that a student has a solid understanding of a certain standard, then we're able to provide them with activities and meaningful tasks that then stretch them.
Stretch them.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Other questions?
So I got a quick question real quick.
No, this is for board members at this point. I'd like to thank the Southeast teachers and staff that are here, and thank you for hosting us this evening, and we appreciate everything that you do and everything that you've done for us to host this meeting, and we're appreciative of your attendance as well, so thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item then, which is the superintendent's report.
I'm going to pause here for just a second. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you. What's that?
I feel like I need a cushion. Cushion for my cushion.
I'll try to keep it short. How's that? Okay.
Put it in the notes.
Put it in the notes.
Thank you, For the time this evening, thank you for everybody that is here still, hanging on. This is not the most exciting stuff in the world, but there are a couple of things to go over here. So first of all, I just want to review our mission, empowering our learners to succeed in their world. Our vision is to provide an ideal learning experience where students and staff are engaged and want to come back the next day. Our core values, I'll touch on a couple of these: trustworthiness, equality, citizenship, responsibility, and collaboration. Some of those things talked about tonight already. So I do want to take just a second. I go over these every meeting, but Molly referenced these earlier. These are the questions that our professional learning communities ask themselves. What do we want students to know and learn? What do students want to know and learn? How will we know if they have learned it? What will we do if they don't learn it? And what do we do if they already know it? So these are the things that those groups are talking about on a regular basis. The first agenda item under Superintendent's report is future focused, and in this month it seemed to be pretty appropriate to just talk about enrollment a little bit of history, as well as where we're at today and just kind of where we need to be watching in the future. Kind of hard to see, this was in the board packet, but I'll draw your attention to these numbers down at the bottom. Our overall enrollment, this is as of the 6th day of the school year. So if you've been in schools for a long time, you know that the State Board of Education asked for 6th-day enrollment on a regular basis. The way they track enrollment has changed a little bit, but that number has been there for a long time. So we've stuck with the 6th-day enrollment. The 6th-day enrollment this year was 3,607 students. Just for comparison, I included the chart from last year, and I can't see it without my glasses. 6th-day enrollment.
3,565.
Was that?
3,565.
Thank you. So last year, that number was down a little bit. The yellow in this chart is 2021. The purple, or mauve, or whatever that color is, I'm not sure, that number is 3762 in terms of grand total. So you can see overall, we were a little bit higher up in 1920, down a little bit last year with COVID and all sorts of things going on, and our numbers are back up. Not quite to this level yet, but we've seen an increase in those numbers. So I'm going to go over enrollment at each of the schools here in just a second, but one of the things that I also watch is not only what the current enrollment is, but the capacity of our buildings. So what's our enrollment look like compared to the space that we have in our buildings? Kathy worked with Mark Ekstrom to pull this information out of a previous presentation in November of 2019. FGMM architects are the architect of record for our school district. They identified a couple of different capacities, and Steve, you may know more about this than I do. Feel free to jump in if you want. State Board of Education capacity, that's calculated a little bit differently than designed operational capacity, as well as being a little different from current operational capacity. So here's the trend in the last 3 years of enrollment in each of our schools. And it pretty well mirrors the trend that you saw in the overall chart. So a little bit higher in the 1920 school year, saw a drop last year, pretty well across the board. We are back up this year. I think we are higher in enrollment in every school. I think there were a couple of exceptions. High school is down 20 students, and Southeast is down 16 students. You can see how that compares to, and I picked operational capacity, so I'm not sure if I should have picked something else or not.
You're good. It's what you're comfortable with operating at.
So we're still within those operational capacities. And then what I did was just identify what that difference is. So we are under the capacity in each of our buildings, but you can see here where we're getting close. And actually, we are closest at West Elementary, then North, then South Prairie, then Southeast, then North Grove in terms of the elementary schools. Really not a whole lot of flexibility with the middle school and the high school. We've got one building for each of those grade levels. If all the building admins were in here, they would probably tell you it may not feel like there's room to breathe there. And I'm not sure how operational capacity is calculated, but it's what you're comfortable at.
Right, within the code limitations
yeah.
with the facility. So.
So one thing that was stressed to me in previous experiences, and I would stress to the board, and Steve, again, feel free to jump in here. If we hit operational capacity, that feels really tight. So one of the things that we'll need to do is to continue to monitor that over the years. So the last slide I put in here was just some things to consider. While enrollment is stable overall, if you take out last year, the COVID year, if you go back previous years, the enrollment has been fairly stable. Not to say that there haven't been increases, but we're not seeing these massive peaks over the years. It will be important to continue to monitor enrollment relative to the capacity of each building. And at the K-5 level, we also need to continue monitoring enrollment in each building. We do have, because we've got 5 elementary schools, if we did start to get to capacity in one, we do have the flexibility to move students from one to another. We already have, I believe, a practice of when one building is full, we already have a practice in place where a student may need to be enrolled in a different building. We don't want to do that, but in terms of being able to operate, that's something that we need to do right now. I don't have any immediate recommendations. This is future focus. These things are just things to think about as we move forward. There are a couple of things that I would encourage the board to keep in mind as we move forward. There is some economic development in our area. I highlighted 2 large ones, Ferrara and Facebook. Those will bring people to our area, to DeKalb, to Sycamore, and to other communities, so that's something to watch. There is other economic development as well, so that's obviously going to bring more families. And then residential construction is slightly improved to pre-COVID. So if you've driven around town or in your subdivision, you see houses going up. In a recent conversation with the city, our numbers are slightly higher than they've been in the past. Not a huge increase, but they are slightly higher than they've been in the last couple of years. So as that gradual growth continues, that's something that we'll need to monitor. And again, to go back to K-5, where is that growth happening so we know where those students are going to be placed in terms of which elementary buildings. So with that, I'm going to stop for a second and answer any questions that you might have, or if the board wants to have any discussion about that item.
I know it's an issue that's been brought up several times to me, just about the disparity between buildings, and I guess I don't know, looking at these numbers, what the best way is to compare one building to another. I know there's those different capacity measurements. I don't know which one best reflects maybe your ability to use the space effectively. I know there's how many kids you can cram, but then there's what kind of flexibility do we have for storage spaces and meeting spaces, and I know some schools have nowhere to put overflow activities or anything, where other schools have a bit more flexibility there. So I guess I would invite maybe thoughts from Steve or maybe the architects in the future to come back and maybe revisit what the best way to look at that is, and when is an appropriate time to seriously consider looking at redistricting. And I know that that's a horrible conversation that parents don't want to hear, and superintendents and administrators don't want to hear either, because it causes disruption, and I get that. You don't want to tell a 4th grader, hey, you just spent 5 years at this school and now you're going to go finish out at another one. But the cost of renovating buildings is also expensive. So one other thing, just noting on your chart, the calculation for North Grove was off. That's 113 instead of 197. So it's really, given that it's the biggest school, it's pretty in line, if not more capacity than I guess some of the other smaller schools.
Yeah, sorry about that, good catch.
So that's just my thoughts on that. I was trying to find, I'd done all the percentage utilization calculations somewhere, but it's been a couple of years, so I've lost that document.
You can mince the data however you want to, you know, but you know, there's a design capacity that designers use based on best practices for what's comfortable in the size classroom. And if you look at a building that was built in the 40s and 50s versus the 70s versus the 2000s, the classroom square footage has increased in every one of those buildings because there are more needs in that classroom. One, kids are bigger, physically bigger, and there are more needs in the classroom for resources and things like that. None of these, of course, these are all pre-COVID requirements. So, you know, how do you plan for maybe more social distancing as a permanent fixture in the future? We don't know. So a typical elementary classroom in the 50s might have been 680 square feet. And in the 70s, it's about 750 square feet. And in the 90s, into the early 2000s, it's 800-ish. And now you're 850, 830, 850 in a lot of buildings for the size, square footage of just your classroom. The hallways have gotten wider, and there are, more specials, more approaches to what those are, so those require additional space, and how quickly you can cycle. What we all know drives an elementary building, or any building, is lunch hour. How many lunch hours, how many kids gonna get in there? So, those are determining factors from a design standpoint. Operationally, yes, you could put X number of kids in there, but that might mean 35 kids in a class. That's a whole different conversation on class size, both with teachers trying to teach that many kids and parents being comfortable with them. So I would say a year out of where we think we're really going to be on that line is the minimum that we would want to start having a conversation about redistricting or, God forbid, needing an addition or something on one of the buildings or something like that.
Or building a whole new.
Or building another building, right, which
And I think
hopefully.
that should be in the mix too.
Yeah, it depends on where the growth and development is. You can redistrict all you want, but if it starts to look the way they do congressional districts, then we've got a problem. If, you're starting to stretch all the way over here to pull kids to North Grove or pull kids to South Prairie or wherever it might be. So, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to slice the pie. So.
Yeah, and again, these numbers are somewhat meaningless without some of that context, but I did find that spreadsheet I put together based on that presentation. And if you looked at design capacity, North Grove was already at 99.4, and South Prairie was at 46.
Right.
So that's a huge spread. Then you go to the operational one you're showing there, and really all the numbers are within a 15% spread, 70 to 89, I guess it's called 20%. So 40 to 20% spread, depending on how you utilize space and what you allocate.
Correct, exactly right. And how many spaces do you have for social work or RTI or MTSS in this case? What are you doing with those spaces? How can they be multiple use? And when you get into different buildings, like a middle school has very different feel, if it's a true middle school and not a junior high, because those are two different things as far as how space is used.
Right.
And then high school as well, and that's all based on schedule. So if you're Seneca High School that runs a block schedule on an A-B day, then 50% of your building isn't being used every other day because those classes aren't offered. So the, family consumer science isn't being used that day because that's not offered on Tuesdays and Thursdays that week. So your efficiency level in your building is very low in a block schedule, but there's other benefits to that. So it's a trade-off on how you look at that. So I would think when we get into this, it would be good to get FGM here so that they can have I'm not the district architect, so let them go through their numbers and explain what each of them means and what that driver is and where they see the break point. And that might be something to look at maybe this spring, once we get a little bit farther down the road and through the holidays and all that, just to give everybody a balance of information. And then if it's a year or 2 or 3 that we think we're going to be out before we hit those numbers, then we back ourselves up and then start to have that discussion so that we can get community input and make a determination on if it's another building, if it's an addition, if it's redistricting, and what buys us how much time based on our best projection.
Yeah, if we can even do additions, that's
Yes,
another thing.
some are going to be limited,
yeah.
right. Because you can many times put lots of classrooms on, and we continually remind the client that if you're going to add classrooms, what are you doing in the cafeteria? What are you doing in the gym for physical education? What are you doing for your specials? Do you need a second music room? Do you need more practice space? Do you need more storage? So all that, you can't just add 8 classrooms and not address any of the other core spaces. Rule of thumb is a third of your building is classrooms, a third of your building is core, and a third of your building is support, which is corridors, storage, mechanical rooms, all that kind of stuff, offices. So just gauging it roughly, third, and a third.
Is there anyone that I guess what entity best provides maybe population projections? I mean, I know we can't necessarily anticipate how much growth is going to occur down there in that 88 corridor and how much of that's going to locate here, but just seeing the high school numbers trending down, is that a trend we expect to continue? Do we think that the growth we saw from 2000 to 2020 is going to occur from 2020 to 2040?
Yeah, you know, it's as good a guess as
Well,
anybody.
It'd be interesting to kind of hear what maybe the city has to say
Mhm.
about what their plans are in terms of, because if you remember, I mean, there was a time when they limited
Oh, yeah.
permits, building permits. So I don't know what,
Mhm.
we probably ought to be talking to them a little bit about that philosophy and what they see in terms of trending. They might already have studies that even show that.
Yeah, they might have had a demographer in, to do that. Yeah, back when I first came on and first started doing planning and zoning, there were 2 meetings a month. And it was a limit to, I believe it was 250 building permits a year. So there were developers in where you're at and across the street where you're at, that they put the roads and the infrastructure in knowing they were still 2 years away from even working their way up the list to get housing permits to start building houses. So I don't think we're headed for that, to be honest with you. I think that was a bit of an extreme bubble at that point. But it's good to have a projection as to, hey, we think we're gonna hit this level in 4 years or 8 years or what have you. I
And
know.
that's an area where we can really work together to.
Yes, it is.
to
And
kind
if they
of
have
make the best of the situation.
If they have some demographer information that's fairly recent, we could probably go back and ask them, hey, maybe in 2022 or 23, let's get that updated, because it'll be less expensive to update it if you go with that group, because they can dig into that, and maybe we share a cost with them or something for that, and then move forward on those projections, and that gives us an idea of where we think we're going to be.
And because if they're not gonna rein in growth, then, we could be in a situation like a Huntley or even certain areas in Canelan, school district, where it just kind of explodes and you're building a new elementary school every year or every other year.
It just makes me curious anecdotally, because I know when we moved in, it seemed like we fit that demographic of everyone that was coming into town, who was gonna have kids going through the school system in, 7, 8 years, and I don't know if new population coming in is still fitting that paradigm, or whether all of us that are here, and as soon as our kids are done, we're gonna see a drop off and everyone's gonna age in town, or?
Yeah, that's a great question, because
Yeah, we're seeing development, we're seeing development, where you have where you have just older adult communities where.
They're downsizing.
Yeah, there might not be kids coming out of that subdivision, but then if they move out of houses in Sycamore, families with kids move in there, so. I think, this is an area where we could probably work with the city to try to tackle this in an intelligent manner going forward.
I'll reach out to, I have conversations with city, off and on, but I'll reach out to them again after, tonight's meeting and just kind of see where they're at with some of these things. I'd love to see a demographic study if they've got that, how recent it is. And I agree, just working with the same company to update it, so they're not starting from scratch. It can be a little bit cheaper if we can share that cost. I don't know that their philosophy has changed with limiting permits or controlling growth.
I don't know, yeah.
But, there's been some change in the city, so you never know. So I'll follow up.
I think from planning and zoning, everybody that sits on that board, I think, is in a controlled growth mindset. And we're not at a point where we would need to limit permits. I don't think we're not even close to that right now. But I'd say that's where the mindset is, but it would be nice to get that confirmation with some of the changes that have transpired. And then, a couple of the other big drivers, when we updated the comprehensive plan here just the last couple of months, through the summer, is roadways. And, there is a plan to, I don't want to say straighten out, but make a more direct route on Plank Road, for example. It'll have a curve to minimize traffic, but that's, according to Nathan at the county, that's probably 20 years out, 18 to 20 years out. There's also a plan to connect up Airport Road going north, so that you have, I know, so you don't have to drive all the way in town to go all the way back. Been doing that for a long time.
Right. See, that depends on development.
It absolutely does.
And so what's 20 years today, if development kicks in, could be 10 years or 5 years.
Right. If somebody takes an option on that, or if the county, say, for example, right now, there's lots of federal government still printing money for this infrastructure bill and all this kind of stuff. So if they were to come into a chunk of money, that could move up on their priority list. I'm not saying they told me that, but if it were to move up and say they do an airport road extension, then that will drive the developers, because they'll come and go, and they'll snap that up, and then we'll be in a position where we maybe 3 years, 4 years out from now, are in a position to have to limit permits again, because we want to control the growth. So those are all, it can be a reverse driver too. But according to Nathan, the airport road extension is probably more like 15 and 20-year range as well. But again, if they get the money, they could choose to spend it there. And that's the kind of infrastructure this bill is supposed to be promoting, from what I understand. So.
Well, I just wanted to drop a couple things for you guys.
Never too early to start the discussion.
I was gonna say, we've been working a lot on these longer vision, we need 5-year plans and 10-year plans for things. This is probably,
Exactly.
we've got the repair facilities, now we need to look at
Yep.
growth and how they're staffed for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because the worst thing that could happen is, you know, you wake up and the train is like right in front of you.
Right in front of you, yeah. And
Yeah, you need to think about it long in advance.
We've talked about the elementary, but that obviously impacts middle school and high school. And what do we do with those facilities as well to accommodate as they matriculate up? So.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. That's a.
You said jump in.
That's the. Next time, maybe no. And really, again, that's what these items are for.
Yeah,
You know, things to think about moving forward. Maybe no immediate need or no immediate plan, but just things to make sure that we're not forgetting and not falling through the cracks.
So be thinking about it.
Perfect. Yeah. So 6.02 is approval of graduation date. Mr. Carlson's recommended that the high school graduation take place on May 22nd, 2 o'clock at the Convocation Center. He's worked back and forth with the Convocation Center and NIU to get a date and time finalized. We felt like that was a great venue for the students, their families, and our staff. Plenty of parking, great venue, it's air conditioned, great vantage point for everybody, really. So would like to ask the board to approve the high school graduation date on May 22nd.
Is there a motion to approve the recommended graduation date for 2022?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
No, I heard a lot of positive feedback about the Convocation Center.
Yeah, it's got rate seating, it's got air conditioning, it's
Parking.
lot more room, yeah, a lot more people can attend. So. It was very nicely done last time. You can tell they have a staff too that knows how to do it. I mean, they get you in and they get you out. Because, you know, they got other schools they got to deal with, so. Worked out great. Okay, there's a motion and a second. No further discussion. Roll call.
Jones?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Ren?
Yes.
Shiloh?
Yes.
DeVito?
Yes.
Dombeck?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay.
Last but not least, under Superintendent's report is policy revisions. I didn't prepare a slide for this one. Jim commented on this. It was not edge of your seat reading. And really mostly was updating policies. You know, boards are encouraged to review policies at least every 5 years, and a lot of these were 5-year reviews. So not a lot of content there. Jim and Steve serve on the policy committee. You're welcome to make any comments you'd like as well.
Yeah, we mentioned the last time, I think, that the only real option was to include a paragraph in one of our policies that made, you know, all gender-based pronouns inclusive, so, which makes good sense, I think. That was really the only option we had, because the rest were just updating references to statutes that had been changed, or grammar and statutes that have been changed. Yeah, not good reading. It's good reading if you want to fall asleep at night.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you guys for sitting on that committee, because I couldn't think of a worse assignment. And you do it without complaining, and I have to say thank you.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, we really read those.
I know.
That's the scary part.
And then you got to read the footnotes to find out what the. Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah, those footnotes. Oh,
I tried. I got the page.
I have to do it over several nights usually, because it just can't take too much.
Well, is there a motion to approve the policy revisions as presented?
So, second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? No further discussion? We don't need a roll call for this, right? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is open discussion and future agenda items.
I
Discussion? Oh,
just have question to ask. I've always loved going to Battle of the Books, and I hear it's gonna happen. Is it gonna happen like in person in the library?
It's gonna be at our school, middle school.
Yes.
Can we
At
get the
yeah.
schedule?
Mhm.
So if we
Yeah,
wanna
yeah.
attend,
Definitely.
Call Lisa and
Yes.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Seems like something
They're all
like
the
live
matches are gonna be at our middle
Middle
school?
school.
To middle school, okay.
Is that something that'll be live streamed?
David's out there.
David?
Shaking his head.
Can it be? I mean, that's, I think
I think that would be
something
great.
Nice to, nice to
Because I think the
showcase
more
on
kids that
Spark
see
TV.
it, the more they're. Well, I think we might have to reconsider that.
I can bring a proposal to you.
It'd be a great learning experience for Spartan TV, right? And maybe the middle school Spartan TV.
Maybe,
too.
yeah.
Get the truck
In
out
their
there.
building,
Yeah,
middle school Spartan TV.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I don't, we should bring that up again.
Just a open discussion item. One thing that I get in Rockford in my office, I get a monthly, newsletter kind of thing from the chamber counter that they do. And the one thing that I've noticed the last, I think they just started doing it fairly recently, at least I noticed it. There's all kinds of information, but then there's a section that shows legislative bills that have been recently passed. And this last time, it was solely education bills that they listed in there. And there wasn't all of them, but it was, 30 or whatever they could fit in there. And I'm wondering if we couldn't encourage something like that for our community. Not that we would produce it, but that we could work with, at least providing the information to the chamber that they put out and share it with the community so that at least they understand all the different things that the school district's having to deal with that we have very little control over. And it gets documented in the community because we see it all when we read our stuff and talk about it, but I think that was very valuable. I was surprised because I didn't read the title at first. I just saw legislative bills and oh, no, that's an education one, that's an education one. And then I realized, wait, these are all educational ones. And I think they maybe rotate every month and focus on a different topic and come back to education, but I thought that was really helpful, and it gave just a quick little, one sentence synopsis of this is what it requires schools to do the following.
Yeah. I will reach out to the chamber
See
and.
if they'd be interested in helping out with that. We could help get them the information or whatever.
I also wonder if there are other publications in the community that we could take advantage of and reach out to do something like that. So let me do a little brainstorming on that.
Okay.
Good idea.
Steve, I got a few questions for you, but they're gonna turn into future agenda items, so I'm gonna use this as the segue.
That's fine.
These are mostly based on parent comments, but since the majority of them didn't stick around for the answer, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, and I know based on our discussions, there's still more talks going on this week, so I'm just gonna throw the questions that I have out there in the hopes that in 2 weeks, we'll have a nice presentation that addresses some of these. So having had my own 5th grade son who was recently quarantined for 10 days, who didn't receive synchronous instruction either, that did seem to conflict with what I guess my perception was of what options were going to be provided, especially for, I know this goes back to the vaccine versus unvaccinated, but clearly not qualified for vaccination, but still had no synchronous learning. Just curious what our plan is going to be, why it's different from what we thought we were going to do this summer and what we're going to do now. The health department seems to have kind of changed their stance, and I know in our discussions of this recent outbreak status, what we thought we were presented with all the quarantine options, they kind of said, oh no, because this is that, those options are off the table. So just wanted to know how much control, and I guess it's more for the public's good, right? What process does the school really have in deciding what the quarantine options are for a student? Is that something our nurses are deciding? I don't think it is. Is it something the health department is saying, here's what you should do or have to do? Would just like some clarity on that. Given that we had these 2 outbreak experiences that we were maybe not expecting to happen this soon, and the likelihood that students may be involved in multiple quarantines and have to spend multiple 10-day periods at home, how can we do better from a remote education standpoint? Because while it's maybe easier to stomach a student or 2 being out for 10 days, if we've got 15, 20 kids out, multiple 10-day periods, that becomes much harder to say, you'll make it up like it was a sick day, 2 years ago. So we'd like to know what our thoughts are for how we can do better on that. And then the last one is there seems to be some conflicting information. I know you addressed this a little bit with the board, but if an individual teacher wants to live stream their class, do they have the ability to do that on their own, or is that something they have to work together as a collective group to come to some agreement on? How much power is in the individual teacher versus maybe site administrator or union leadership? How does that work?
Okay. Yeah, I can answer all those.
I appreciate that.
Any other future agenda items? Is there a motion to go into executive session for the consideration of matters related to the appointment, employment, or dismissal of personnel, negotiations, and imminent litigation?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call?
Nelson?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Shiloh?
Yes.
DeVito?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Dombeck?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We're gonna stay here for closed session.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll have to ask everybody to step out while we do that.
Move into executive session, and then we'll open the doors up for our final vote. All right, we're back in regular session. Is there a motion to approve the personnel report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call?
DeVito?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Shiloh?
Yes.
Dombeck?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.